Hey electric vehicle fans, Mark up here in Lake Tahoe. I'm in the Sierra Mountain Range in Northern California bordering Nevada. We got about a foot of snow last night and 2 feet up on the mountain. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to show you in action a new accessory I got for my Rivian R1T truck. And that's this Yakima Ski and Snowboard Mount. Now the model I have here, it's called the FatCat Evo 6. And I have a lot of things I can show you about it, but with the blizzard on and off today, this is my only window for shooting. So I'm going to do the rest of this in my driveway back home. But here's a couple things I'm going to show you. I'll show you why you need this rack even when you already have a truck with lots of space. I'll share where I bought it and for how much, what you get with it. I'll cover how easy it is to install, which is pretty easy. Then I'll load up some gear and show you how much you can fit into it. And then I'm going to show you how to lock it up. Specifically, I'm going to show you how to use the Rivian gear guard cable. So just to be clear about this product, I am not sponsored or paid. I paid for it myself, full price, bought it on the website. So I want to let you know you're getting a true full review here. All right, enough about all that. Let's get into it.
So that's the agenda. Now here's a tip for you. If you're watching this on YouTube, in the description of the video down below, you'll find that same agenda with links allowing you to jump around the video if you need to. And please take this time to subscribe to my channel down below if you have not already, and like this video.
So why do you need a rack and mount system if you have all this storage in this Rivian R1T truck? That's a fair question. Yes, you can store your gear in the truck bed here. You've got lots of space for skis and snowboards. However, two things. When you're heading up and down the mountains with lots of those curvy roads, you're going to hear some things sliding around in here. And two, if you have longer gear, like this snowboard here that I have is 161 centimeters, you're going to have to go diagonally across the truck bed to fit it in. Not a big deal, but then it kind of limits your ability to put other bins and things in here. Now another option is to use the gear tunnel, and you've seen on my video on the gear tunnel that there's lots of things you can fit in there, and yes, you can fit in skis and snowboards. However, at 161 centimeters, my snowboard is about the max you can fit in there, and you're not going to be able to fit 4 of them in there. Also, I like to use the gear tunnel for ski boots and snowboard boots. It's a great place to store those things because the door to the gear tunnel acts as a real nice sitting platform, changing station for those boots. So I save the gear tunnel for boots. And all that aside, I think it's just nice to have snow gear on the outside of your vehicle. It's going to be dripping wet at the end of the day. Put all the messy stuff out here. All right, so that's enough on why you need a rack. Let's talk about why I think you want to consider this particular rack, especially if you have the Rivian R1T truck. So the Rivians have a proprietary bar. It connects really awesomely into the vehicle. It just clicks in and it clicks out. By far, it's the best rack system I've ever had. And that rack, those bars, they're made by Yakima. So it just makes sense that you use Yakima mounts when you can, when they make sense, to fit onto this Yakima bar. So I recognize I've been talking a lot about how this Yakima mount fits with the Rivian truck, but keep in mind that this Yakima Evo 6 mount we're looking at, the FatCats, it'll pretty much work with any system. It's got adapters to work with different size and styles of bars. All right, so now let's get into where I bought it, how much I paid, and what I got with it. Let's get a little bit closer. So I bought my Yakima ski and snowboard mount from the Rivian shop on the Rivian website, and I paid $350 for it. Now you can find it other places. You can find it at Yakima, at REI, Amazon, but all those places was $30 more at $380. So a pretty good price, $350 from Rivian. And the shipping was included, and it came pretty quickly. I ordered it on a Friday, and I had it 5 days later on a Wednesday. So pretty nice. Now, if you're buying a new Rivian vehicle, I encourage you to just go ahead and add all these accessories at the time of purchase, because then they include it in the total price of the vehicle and they include it in your financing. So load it up at the time of purchase. Now you're only getting this mount and the clamps that attach the mount to a rack. Okay, so you still have to have a rack in place. You're not buying that for $350, but this mount system was $350. All right, so now you know where I got it, how much I paid, and we're going to break this down to the original state. I'm going to lay out the parts, show you what you get, and then I'll show you how quickly and easily you can assemble it and attach it to your rack. All right, let me show you what you get with the Yakima FatCat Evo 6 mount system. You get 2 of the FatCats, or these mounts. This is the main item. All right, 2 of those. You get 4 of these clamps or clamp assemblies. The clamp has a strap underneath that will go underneath your vehicle rack. You will attach these mounts to this clamp, and you're going to use this thing up top called a knob, or what I call a latch, to tighten it. All right, so you get 4 of those. You get 4 washers you'll use when you attach those parts. You get 2 keys. I would recommend labeling them right away so you don't get them mixed up with any other rack keys you have lying around. You get instructions, of course, but you don't need those. You've got me. And then you have a pack of adapters, which you do not need. Most people will not need these. Definitely with the Rivian and the rack that I'm attaching it to, I don't need these. These are if you have one of those small tube style racks, either square or round. But if you have the more oval shape, like the Rivian here, what they call an arrow shape, you don't need these. I'm never going to use them, so toss those out. And that's it. There's no tools needed. It actually did come with one small Allen wrench, which I tossed out. The reason they give you an Allen wrench is that for some people, and I think it's a very small amount of people who have very large ski or snowboard bindings, you may need to elevate your mount a little bit off of the rack so that your bindings don't hit your vehicle or your tonneau cover. And actually, if you look, it's underneath the mount. It's this piece here. I'll show you more of it later. That's called the ski lift system. We're not using that. That's a modification you'll find in the instructions on page 3 or 4. And if you are going to do the ski lift modification, they give you that Allen wrench to adjust or kick up that leg. But we're not doing that. So that's it. 2 mounts, 4 clamps, 4 washers, and your hands are all you need to assemble this. Okay, it's time to get to work. And I have a couple of recommendations for you on your setup area. So let's use the back of the truck here. And if you have the Rivian R1T truck, I'd recommend lowering it to its lowest settings, so that way it's easier to reach across. Now, if you're not familiar with how the Rivian truck can raise and lower itself with its air suspension, check out some of my other videos. I also recommend a pad to put down here so you're not scratching up the truck bed. I like to use these gym pads. They're 2 by 2 foot. I put 4 of them together and it's a nice working space. It's also nice just to keep this in the truck. Lay all your stuff out, and I recommend laying the racks, the mounts, in the direction you want them to open. So I always like my racks, my mounts, to open towards the driver's side. Okay, most people do as well. So for the remainder of the video, we're going to set it up like this. So the hinge is going to be on that end, the opening is going to be on this end. All right, now before we assemble, there's one thing you have to do, and this is in the instructions. You actually have to take a part off of each of these clamps, and I'll show you that. So all 4 of your clamps are going to arrive like this, and you're going to need to take off this top latch. We'll put it back on later. So just loosen that up till it comes off. We'll take that off and set that down. There you go. We're going to do that 4 times. All right, so we've got our 4 clamps laid out. We've got the latches off. We've got our 2 bars laid across. We're ready to go. Now with all 4 of these clamps laid out, I want to talk to you about this tightening wheel that you're going to use later. This is used to tighten the tension on the strap so it's nice and snug. And this is the direction you're going to go to the right to tighten. Okay? That's tightening. And I can tell you that all 4 of these on the Rivian rack are going to need to be tightened later, so you might as well just do it now. So I'd go ahead and actually tighten all of these 10 to 15 turns. So like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Just do that to all of them because they're going to need to be tightened anyway later. So you remove these 4 latches and you lay them down, and just for reference later, when you're tightening these latches, when they're in this position like this with that crease up, that's not tightened. When you flip them down to the tightening position, they're going to look like this. They're going to be curving towards the surface. So that's what the 4 of them will look like later when you clamp them down. So now we're ready to install the clamps. We're going to install those 4 clamps to these 2 mounts. All right. So now to do that, I'm going to start on that end. I'm going to start on the hinge end down over there. The reason is on the hinge end, there's a notch. It's not on this end, only on that end. And that notch will dictate which direction your clamp goes. So we'll start over here. Let's zoom in. All right, we've got our 4 parts here. We've got a washer, we've got that lever, we've got our clamp, and we've got our mount. And we're on the right side, the hinge side. Go ahead and take your clamp and have it like this with the strap going down. Move it up a little bit. We want this strap going down, all right? And we're going to take our mount and we're going to look underneath it. And what we're looking for is on this mountain. By the way, this is that ski lift contraption, this bar here, this leg that we're not using. But within it, this space that we're working, look at this V, look at that V-shaped edge there, that little notch. Okay, we also have the same thing right here, the corresponding notch. That's on the left side. That's on the left side of this space. That's what you want. All right, so we're going to go ahead and leave this clamp with the bolt facing straight up on the surface, and we're just going to flip over and we're going to set our mount on top of it, but you have to hold the arm open so that you can see the space. All right, so there we go. All right, so that's there, and I'm holding this arm right now with my hand, my one hand. I'm going to take my other hand, which I'm not left-handed, but I'm doing this left-handed. Put the washer on, and then this right here, that lever, that knob, we're going to thread that on. This is hard to do left-handed, but there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like 4 turns. That's it. Just so it's not falling off. And that's it. You want to leave this very, very loose, and you'll find out why later. Now, instructions say to leave this up. I disagree. I would flip this down, get it out of the way, and that way you can let the arm come down. You can even shut this if you want. Just as you're moving this around, as you're putting it up on the truck, it's nice to have it shut rather than having to keep the arm wide open. So that's it, and look how loose this is. That's what you want. You want it very loose. So now we're going to move on to here to the left end and do it the same exact way. It's actually going to be a little bit simpler over here. Down on this end, there is no ski lift contraption. Now there is, however, a decision to be made. Which of the 2 possible mounting points are you going to use? And we are going to use the outside one, and pretty much everyone will be using the outside one. The reason they have an inside option is if you have a really small rack area to deal with, you would go inside, but always use the widest possible one. So we're going to go outside. We're going to attach it to this one right here. Also, if it's not obvious, you want the straps going in the same direction. So since that strap is in that direction, the strap on this side will also be in the same direction. So that's how we're going to attach it. All right, so I've got my clamp on the surface with the bolt sticking up. I'm going to take the whole mount. I'm just going to lift it, and I'm going to set it down on top of that bolt like that. This side's a lot easier because you don't have to work close to the hinge, and you don't have to, I don't even have to hold the arm up. It stays up and out of the way. So put your washer on, and then we're going to go ahead and thread on our knob, put it down. It's not coming off, it's super loose. That's what you want. And that's it. We're good to go. Now we can shut this if we want, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, so both clamps are on this mount. This one's done. We're just going to grab the other mount and do the exact same thing. Okay, so we have all 4 clamps on the 2 mounts, and we're ready to install these puppies up onto the truck. Now you can jump up into the truck bed and do it from there, but I like to do it from the ground so I can walk around. Now I'm going to go ahead and shut the tailgate here. I'm going to leave one of them in the truck, and I want to show you a big decision you have to make here. You have to decide where you're going to mount this. All right. If you mount it in the center, right down the middle, the advantage here is that during installation, it's easier to get to both sides to tighten it. Now, if you install it off to the side, the advantage here is that when you're loading your gear, it's easier to load your gear. Okay. I actually don't like it this way. It is a little bit off tilt because the bar has a different thickness here than there. So I end up going down the middle. It's just easier to install, quick on, quick off. And in some way, maybe it's a little more aerodynamic to have your gear down the middle. And I just like the symmetrical look. So we're going to install this right down the middle. Now, if you are going to install it off to the side like this, then I would drop the tailgate and I would work from inside the vehicle because it's too hard to get to that side from around the other end. All right. Okay, so we're going down the middle. All right, so I recognize that I've broken the 180 rule of filmmaking, but I need to flip around to the other side here to show you what's going on with the buckle. So we have the mount on top of the rack. This is the opening end, and we're going to go ahead and put the strap underneath the Rivian bar and attach it. Now there's a couple things you can learn here. So I'm going to zoom in though so you can see this up close. All right, so we're going to take the buckle and we're going to put it into the clamp after going underneath the bar, and we're going to close it, lock it. Now, if you can't push it down, there's one of 2 reasons why you are not able to close the buckle. One, the buckle is just too tight. So come back out to this wheel and go left to loosen it. Remember earlier we went right to tighten it? All right. So go ahead and do that. And now if it closes, you're good. Now if it closes too easy and this moves around, which mine is not right now, but if that were to move around and that closed too easy, then obviously tighten it some more by moving it to the right. All right, so there you go. Get the buckle in like that. You may still not be able to close the buckle if it's one of another reason. You may be hitting this lock right here. So when you tighten this top clamp, what I called clamp, what they call a knob, you are attaching the mount to the clamp. But it has a dual purpose. Tightening this also, watch this, I'm going to loosen it. Tightening the top also brings down this latch, this lock, and it locks the buckle. Do you see that? Locks that buckle in place. So if you're not able to get the buckle in, it's because that lock is in the way, and you have to loosen this up here. Remember in the beginning I said put these on really loose. Don't have them tight. That's why these should be loose when you start, so that lock is not in the way. All right, so if you're not able to close your buckle, just loosen this up as much as you can, and you'll be able to get by this. Now once it's shut, we're going to go ahead and tighten, but we have one more thing to do before we tighten. Let's make sure that this is where we want. This whole thing pivots back and forth, it rocks. And you want to go to the side and look down and look at it and make sure it's vertical. Make sure that this is closing, raising and closing perfectly up and down. You want it nice and straight. So make it straight, hold on to it, then tighten this. And that's it. Now how hard you tighten this, it doesn't have to be that hard. Just go until it's uncomfortably hard to turn. That was too far. Go back a little bit and then just clamp it down. Remember when I said clamp it down, the curved part goes down. So that curved part goes down. That's it. That's not going anywhere. We're done with this side. Now let's move to the other side. Okay, ignore what I just did there as I ended that last clip. You do not want to shut them out. You want to leave it open. So now I'm on the other side and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Nothing new over here. The only thing is that you may encounter a little bit more trouble getting the buckle shut, because now on this side we got this bar here that's part of that ski lift mechanism, and that can get in your way. And so as you go to close the buckle, if you're hitting that, just take the whole thing, the whole mount, and just tilt it back. Just tilt it with a little bit of muscle out of the way, and then your buckle will get past it. So not a big deal if you're hitting that, just move it out of the way. But everything we covered on the other side, if it's tight, which this one is, it's not moving, then the buckle's shut, we're good to go. Now I'm just going to make sure that we're vertically aligned, and then I'm going to go ahead and tighten my knob or my latch. Tighten, tighten, tighten. You can see that it's locking down on the buckle down below. And I'm going to close it like this. And let's go ahead. I can actually close it from this end. And then you look, it's like, that is not moving. That is solid. Not going anywhere. All right, we're done. Now we just need to do the other mount in the same way. Put those two clamps on the bars and we're done. The only other tip I'll share is when you put the second mount on, just make sure you're lined up with the first one. Make sure it's in the same spot along the bar as the first one. So there it is. We are done. Both of our mounts are on. We're ready to load them up and head to the mountains.
But before we do that, a quick challenge. How fast can I install one mount? Let's see how long it takes. Ready and go.
Done.
That was 42 seconds. Not bad.
Okay, well, most of you don't need someone to show you how to load up a ski and snowboard rack. What I'm going to do here in front of you so you can see what fits and give you guys a couple of tips. So you can go ahead and store or stack up two boards together like this. That's okay. You can handle that thickness. So do that, and I would push everything back. Load the back first. Here we have a pair of kid skis. These are 112s. 112s are short, but they work. Now, on the contrary, these are 88s, and 88s just don't work. Too short, so these are gonna have to go somewhere else. All right, I'm gonna put another row of snowboards in here. So we've got another row here. Push that back. There we go. Now we're going to close it. Now, don't be worried about the thickness and the hinge. They actually have built in a double hinge. You're going to see here when I close it, the hinge actually opens itself up wider to account for the extra thickness. So you'll see that here as I close it. And when you pull down on the hinge, don't be shy. Pull down real hard. Get all 3 clicks like that all the way down. And that's it. They're all loaded in. So Yakima tells you that this mount system will hold 4 snowboards or 6 pairs of skis. In fact, it says 6 pairs of powder width skis. So those are the wider ones, right? Well, you can see here, I can actually get a little combination of that. I could get 4 snowboards and 1 pair of powder skis here if I needed to. So plenty of room to spare. Now, if all I'm traveling with is 2 snowboards, I wouldn't necessarily stack them. I would put both of them strapped side down, just a little bit more aerodynamic this way.
Remember earlier I told you didn't need to use the ski lift modification? That's for people who have unusually large or tall bindings. So you can see here the normal installation. I've got plenty of room. Now, if you're curious, you have 8 inches from your board or ski's surface to the tonneau cover. So as long as your bindings come 8 inches or less off your board or skis, you'll be fine. And the distance between the 2 racks, the opening here is 29 inches. Now, since the Rivian racks are at fixed points and you can't move them, you just have to deal with this. So if you have an unusually wide stance, this may be an issue for some. So measure your stance before you buy these. I'll also show you that my board does come quite close to the glass. It comes within about 2 inches of it. My board's 161 centimeters. So if you want to measure from your binding to the end of your board, as long as it's 19 inches or less on your shortest end, you won't be hitting the glass. And our last measurement, 32 inches. That's the amount of usable space you have across the mount.
Now we're going to lock up our gear, and we're going to do it in 2 ways. We're going to lock our gear into the Yakima mount, and there's dual integrated locks. And we're going to lock our gear to the Rivian truck using this gear cable. All right, let me show you how you do that. For locking up the Yakima mounts, it's as easy as putting the key in and just doing a quarter of a turn. Now, if it sticks a little bit, just push down on the mount. And I would recommend bringing both of these keys with you on your trip, just so that if you lose one, you can still get to your gear.
One tip for those using these locks in the mountains: if you're parking overnight in a freezing storm, I would leave the racks unlocked because they will likely get caked in ice. And although you can knock the ice off easy enough to open the arm, if there is ice inside the lock, it will be very hard to get the key in there. Now, if you're worried about the rack being unlocked, listen to what comes next.
Now we're going to use the Rivian gear cable, and this is really cool. This integrates with a greater security system that Rivian has. It's called the Gear Guard system. There's 5 cameras, there's this cable, there's sensors, alerts, and alarms. And they all come together. I'm going to show you how you set this up, which is pretty cool. This will lock your gear into the truck, and then I'll briefly show you that overall Gear Guard system. Now, the way the gear cable works is actually quite simple. The 2 ends, which are identical, you can pick either one, can pass through the other end, creating a closed loop. So you take your first piece of equipment, find a closed space like the back of the binding, put one end through it, pass the other end through that opening, and pull that. And there we've secured our first piece of equipment. That's on there. Now we're just going to go through every other piece of equipment on the truck and just pass the cable through it, securing it to the cable. And we'll work our way through all the gear and get to the other side. And then we're going to work our way to this corner of the truck bed, work in this space where they have the air compressor, and I'm going to show you how this plugs into here. So to secure your gear cable to the vehicle, you're just going to plug it into one of these 2 ports. Simple as that. Now what you need to do though after plugging it in is lock the vehicle. So if I go ahead and lock the vehicle, listen to that sound of the latch. There. Now our cable is secure. The vehicle is aware that we've got our gear connected to the Gear Guard system, and we've got an extra level of security here. I'll go ahead and unlock it and pull it out. Pretty slick. And then the last thing I'll show you with the cable and how to install it is that it does work just fine with the tonneau cover. You just want to put it right here in the corner. There's a little space there in the seal. Just shut the gate like that, and you're good to go.
The Rivian Gear Guard system I'll cover in greater detail in its own video, but here are the highlights. The system consists of 5 cameras, some sensors, a vehicle alarm, and alerts on your phone, along with, of course, that braided steel gear cable we just set up. There are a few settings you see here, like if you want the alarm and/or the recordings, and where to be active, but otherwise it is always on. The video footage is stored on board, where it can be saved or downloaded later, and when reviewing recorded events, you have 5 cameras to choose from. The recordings begin when a person, animal, or vehicle gets within a few feet of the sensors, and this little character on the screen lets them know that they are now on camera. And if they proceed to mess with your truck or your gear, the vehicle alarm goes off and you are notified on your phone through the Rivian app. And that is the Rivian Gear Guard system that my skis and snowboards are now connected to.
All right, that's everything I can think of sharing with respect to this Yakima ski and snowboarding mount. I hope you found the information useful. Maybe you can use it in your purchasing decisions. But I've got to get back to playing in the snow. I want to thank you for your time. I'll see you on the next video, and have yourself a great EV day.